Hello everyone, welcome to our 20th episode of Girls Tech Talk, and Tara and Shima are here again with one of our 12 factors detailed in the episode. In today's session, we are going to talk about environment parity. It's again one of the area of 12 factors where it says that your environments of development should be kind of as close as possible to production. So why it is required and what does it mean and what are the advantage if you follow 12 factors for this practice? We'll talk about it. I'll start with my personal experience. Like if you have worked into product development for a quite long time, or even if it's for like 3 or 4 years, you must have seen and experienced like you have several environments for your development and testing, and then it goes to production. So it's like start with dev environment and then goes to system testing, integration testing, user acceptance testing, and then production. And usually productions configurations and productions infra obviously stays at higher level with respect to the production development environment or the other integration testing environment. So what happens is and in fact when there are several security things also which only stays in the production environment but not in the lower environment. So when the developers performs its development, what happens is like usually they forget to take care of those security concerns, or they forget to take care of certain things which only can be evaluated or tested or I would say analyzed in production environment, and then it only can be like looked into or tested into production. So this is one of the issue when you don't have like streamlined environments. And obviously it's not possible for the organizations to have the same kind of infra as production in the lower environments, because obviously it costs more, and you cannot give everything in the lower environment, specifically in the dev environment. So but there are things which you can follow, which you can still try to adapt in your development life cycle, so that you won't run into issues directly into production and then you have to do like hot fixes and all. So maybe Srima will tell you more about that, like how you can do it. I'm just giving you like what are the issues which you run into in your day-to-day life if you're not following these things. And then another thing again you must have observed is like the way we do deployment of our changes, right? Usually in the organizations, what we follow is like now things like Dojo and everything has came. So it's like everybody should be aware of development and deployment. But in earlier traditional model, what it was like, the development is only like aware of the development work. They knew how to code, they knew how to test it in their local system, but eventually they were not aware of how to perform deployment. And they totally rely on the operations team, like ops people, for performing the deployment, and they usually worked in the silos. So that again give you a certain level of what to say, like you don't get the confidence that things which you are testing in your own system, in your local system, is going to work in your actual environments as well, like it is actually going to work in production or not. So there was a confidence issue as well. And the third thing I would say, like the difference of the tools. So it's like you are doing deployment, for suppose you are working in containers and you are just doing kubectl apply blah blah blah, whereas helm is getting used for deployment in the actual environment. So there is a difference in the deployment setup, and it may happen that the configuration files or the values file which you have created is not going to work the similar way in the production or in the other environment. So those things are also there, which comes up if you are not having the bridge of these tools gap. So these things are there, I guess. Even DB things are there, I guess. Tima, you can cover up that DB things also. So there are these kind of issues which we face specifically in traditional model, and now we have started using these 12 factor best practices, and how that helps you out. I guess Rima, you can take that over and actually tell us how we should be following these 12 factors, environment parity, and what benefit it gives for in the development cycle.
Thanks, Tara. So I would like to add environment parity is a factor of the 12 factor app. So it is one of the considerations that we have to make, like when we are building the architecture, that when we are selecting the backing services and then platform consideration. And one of the thing we are considering here is the environment parity. That means like my higher environment, which is production, should be similar to my lower environments, mean dev, QA, or if there is an in between test and UAT. So now Tara has told you what are the scenes can expect, means what are the ways we can see like what can happen if my environment is not similar, not as it is. So one of the reason I would like to add, like first is like data. I think Tara already mentioned, but still, for example, if you try to see that that issue only exists in production because it works in a different data set. So database is your backing services, and that has its own database. And when as a developer I am developing it, I have not tested it might be with that data. So the data and how the schema is designed, that is also an important factor. So it is important. It is one of the best practices. Like keep your database or other backing services as it is in our production. So as I just start, first thing is like where from we are taking the code. So the best practice or guidelines is like there should be a master branch or main branch, or the way you want to call it, means that it should be the production code. And the code should start from your production repository to go through all other deployment cycles, and then pass the release kit, and then go to other environments and production. And whenever as a developer we should take a copy from that branch and create a feature branch or dev branch, and then build it. And once we are committing to our main branch or the production branch, it should always go to the deployment. So this is a responsibility of the development team that we are maintaining it. Now, one of the responsibilities for example, we have all our changes in our main branch, and from there it should go for further production. And then the concern is like how long time I am taking, like from development to production. This should be as minimum as possible. Because if we are stacking our commits, like I am changing, and then after that I took another user story and then I changed something, and then how do I ensure my previous user story that I have worked in last sprint or last week or maybe sometimes back, then how I am ensuring that it is working as properly. So we should keep that on mind. And for a bigger team, and then when people are working in many user stories, and it is always recommended that every commit should go to the production as the way it is coming. Means I just committed it to the production bench, and it should go to the past all the testings and other release checks, and then go to our production environment. And the next is testing, how much testing I am doing. So is there is all level of testing is being included in our CI/CD pipeline. That is something give us a kind of confidence that okay, it's going to work. So yeah, one of the thing is I think we should keep on mind, we should not fear about production deployment, because if my environment is already prepared, if my dev data is passing and then test and QA is passing, it's going to work in the production. So this is coming from the code perspective. Now, what can go wrong? So obviously the environment, because production is, we say mostly secure. It scale differently. It has some set of scaling that is configured only for production. And obviously for a cloud platform, I am not going to spend that much of money, the amount I spend for production, because it has to scale. But my dev, test, QA, it may not scale. It's actually not required. So it's not wise to spending on that. But what can we make our life better? Whatever policies or whatever configurations we are making to our services for production, if we do it through automated pipeline, For example, the policies it is running or any monitoring principle that has in my production. If I have it through and pipeline format, then I can originate that environment for QA, test, or dev, and then see like okay, this is the exact replica of my production server, and then I can test my code in case it fails or in case if there is any issues exist. So this is a kind of, I would say, backup plan, like when it's nothing works, because it's a kind of safeguarding our work, and it's an intelligent way of having like or I could say like best practices way that we see like okay, our production environment how we have created, we can do it, and no manual deployment obviously, because manual deployment it's not recommended actually. We should not go to the server and change something so that our production works. And yeah, these are the three important things I would like to say, like how are we deploying the code, and how are we deploying our infrastructure, and how much control I am giving to my production server to someone who can change it. It's obviously it's not recommended. It's only through a pipeline and only through our DevOps process.
Right.
And yeah, that actually makes our life easier. So these are the best practices I would recommend. And Tara, if you feel like I might have forgot something, you can add.
No, I think, yeah, those are the things like deployment gap, time gap, and infra gap. And I would just like to add, like sometimes developers find it out very difficult to break the features into smaller pieces. When we say the time gap should be very less, and then the devs come up with like, we cannot break it into smaller pieces. The feature cannot go like in smaller chunks. We have to have go in a like a bigger change. Just try to come up with like try to adapt that culture of breaking your feature into such a pieces that it can be kind of it can be broken down and it's reverse compatible, so that you can just do frequent deployments. You can do the frequent changes. You can do create the features, frequent features, and then that can be deployed to production with reverse compatibility, so that it can be like work with the previous code, like as you said, for the services to be compatible with, and then you just have broken down your 6 month work into like per week work, and then you are deploying it to production. So that will give you a confidence of things are going to work one after another. So it will not matter as a big surprise in a big bad surprise, and it will be like smaller changes which are going to production. So yeah, that's all we had for today's session. I hope you will get some idea about environment parity and 12 factors, and that will help you out. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.